I had a real love-hate reaction to the Mitchells versus the Machines. So let's get down to it. And since it's always best to end on a positive note, let's start with the hate section first. They're both pretty long. I'm not sure even if I should give this a fresh or a Rotten Tomato, although I'm leaning towards Rotten because it's right on the line. But as you can see, my hate section's a little bit longer than the like section on this movie. All right, so my biggest problem with the film by far is the depiction of getting into film school. Now, Katie, our lead character, wants to go to film school, and she gets in. Don't worry, that's not a big shocker. That happens. That's one of the things that sets off the film. And a lot of people want to go to film school. I know a number of you want to, and I went to film school. And I've never seen a more simplistic and misleading interpretation of what it takes to get into film school. This movie is not doing anybody any favors. This is a piece of entertainment. Do not take it as any kind of advice on how to pursue a career in film. Now, to get into film school, I'll help you out here. You need to demonstrate not just a strong artistic ability, but sensibility. You need to have some idea of what you're doing and why. Don't worry, it doesn't need to be fully formed because that's what film school will help you do. But you have to have some direction. You know, it has to be clear to you and also to the people looking at your work that, you know, these were intentional choices with something of a bigger picture in mind. Now, Katie's work, it's depicted, in my opinion, as just playing around, like the filmmaking version of doodling. It seems like she's better suited for the AV club, like she never gets beyond the AV club, than for a career in entertainment. And I find it really hard to believe, by the way, speaking of the AV club, that there wasn't a single student in her high school or even a teacher who shared her love of weird, especially because today, weird has never been more popular. I'm like, nobody in your high school liked this stuff? You must not have been looking. So again, I feel like it's just not at all realistic. And I found that very frustrating. Then on top of all that, I actually did not care for Katie's actual work. I found it unfocused and not particularly original. Wasn't there an art teacher at the school? I mean, didn't she have to take art class or something like that? I can't believe nobody tried to guide her. It's also extremely pop culture based, and I can tell you that film school hates anything that celebrates pop culture in the mainstream. They hate it. They absolutely hate it. So if that's all she submitted to get into film school, I mean, I guess there are lots of levels of film schools these days, but you know, she's not even doing it ironically. There's nothing intelligent. You know, there's no commentary. I mean, there ends up being commentary on herself, but that's even accidental. So, I mean, it's just, the work is just not good in my opinion. And this film often plays like it was made by Katie. So I don't like her work, and therefore I have problems when the film reflects that work. Now, of course, art is subjective. So some people might like Katie's work and therefore like those elements of the film. So as I always say, we'll see what the market decides. Although it's a little harder to tell when a movie's on Netflix because, you know, you don't have any box office numbers to look at. Well, I mean, I think this movie, it's from Phil Lord and Chris Miller. It's animated. It should probably hit #1 on the Netflix top 10 its week of release. We'll see how long it stays up there. But again, I'm open to this being a big hit. It might just not be for me. Although the movie does establish that, or kind of establishes that her online videos are popular, and I wish that the movie had made that clearer and introduced it earlier, because that would be really important to the story. I'm like, if her videos are popular, nothing that you did and explained in the first part of the movie makes any sense. Like when her dad is worried about her future, why can't her mom be like, but her videos have tons of views? And then problem solved. It made no sense to me. I was like, the people who are watching them, just a small group that, you know, I don't want to give anything away too much, but that just didn't make any sense to me. And also, if anybody at all was watching her videos with social media, what it is today, and allowing people to connect, you and I talk all the time, I think it's really hard to believe that she felt so alone if anybody, even a small group of people, were watching these videos. I mean, didn't she have the comments turned on, right? It makes no sense. I also did not like the gross out humor. Mitchells vs. the Machines often plays like a National Lampoon movie where Randy Quaid and his family are the center of attention instead of the Griswolds. And I think we all agree, or most of us agree, that a little bit of Eddie and Company goes a long way. I mean, they never made a movie about Eddie and his family, and I think there's a clear reason why. Until now. Although, again, maybe people would like a movie about Eddie. Again, let the market decide. If this movie does well, National Lampoon should seriously consider that, quite frankly. That's what I would do. I'd be like, oh, wow, people like this. Let's make a movie about Eddie. Now, also, speaking of dogs, Eddie, of course, had a famous dog. I can't imagine why anybody would keep the dog in this movie. If you can get it, please explain it to me. I mean, I'm not a big pet person to begin with, so we have to take that into account. But this dog, that dog just like wasn't even present. It's not like it was a crazy, weird, gross dog, but it had a heart of gold and, played with the family. It didn't even interact with anybody. It was just like a giant ball of flesh that they just fed and dragged around. I'm like, what are you doing? It didn't make any sense to me. They never made a case for liking that dog. I guess it was like Katie's artistic muse. But then I'd be like, but then you take care of it. I mean, and also, I don't know. It just didn't make any sense to me. Next, I can appreciate that director and co-writer Mike Rionda wanted to do a voice in the film. But did he have to voice Katie's little brother? Because it was really an odd choice to have, especially because there are so many wonderful child actors today, to have a grown man voice Katie's little brother and then never explain why or show why they made that choice or have a comedic payoff or something like that. You were like, why didn't you hire a child actor? I mean, surely there must have been somebody else in the film that Mike Rionda could have voiced. Finally, while I realize that all families have their problems, they do. Every single family has their problems. I felt the Mitchells were particularly mean and uncaring to each other for a large part of the film, and it made them, in my opinion, unsympathetic. Nobody's perfect, of course, but even the littlest bit of effort goes a long way, and I found often, particularly Katie and her father, couldn't even make the littlest of efforts. It was frustrating. Oh yeah, and queerbaiting yet again. I couldn't believe it. I think at the very end of the movie, it's established that Katie is LGBT. It's done so quickly in a single exchange, like in basically an end credit sequence. I mean, not only was I frustrated they didn't make it clear, but I was annoyed that once again Hollywood does not have the courage to make a character clearly LGBT. I mean, you might as well not even do it if you're not going to do it clearly, because it's just insulting. I mean, I think it really needs to end where people have to guess if a character is LGBT, especially the LGBT community, who deserves to have representation. And, it's like, it shouldn't be like a secret or just a wink at the LGBT community. They should have a clear-cut character. All right, that's what I hated. Now, what did I love? It's a fair amount of stuff. All right, so all the robot tech humor was fantastic. Seriously, when the robot invasion starts at the end of the first act, I became a lot more interested in the movie. I was like, now we're cooking with gas. This is good. Beck Bennett and Fred Armisen are particularly funny as two robots who end up helping the Mitchells. They practically stole the movie. They had jokes, in my opinion, that were laugh out loud funny. I love them. Olivia Colman also does a nice job, of course she does, as the leader of the tech uprising, although her voice here is almost indistinguishable from Emma Thompson's. And Emma Thompson should be nervous that Olivia Colman is going to take all of her voiceover work going forward, because they're like the same. I also really liked everything about the founder of PAL Labs. I thought that was a really cool, really well-designed and developed character, and I thought Eric Andre did a great job as his voice. The tech stuff just really, really worked for me across the board. From the jokes to the world building, I thought it was great. I also really liked the animation style. It's very unique. Well, kind of unique. It borrows heavily from the Spider-Verse, remixing 3D and 2D animation styles to create a hybrid. And by the way, both these movies are produced by Phil Lord and Chris Miller for Sony, although Sony sold this one to Netflix, although Sony Animation is still credited on it. Mitchells vs. the Machines is different enough from the Spider-Verse that it does feel like its own thing. And while the movie might be all over the place, it's really all over the place. At least that means it keeps things moving with a ton of different set pieces. And really interesting ones. Like the movie always keeps going and everything's like an 11 all the time. So if you don't like something, odds are the movie will either move on from it in just a moment or it will introduce something else to distract you from what you don't like. You're like, I really hate that. Oh, but that's funny. I did that a lot during the movie. I thought the movie got progressively better as it went along, in my opinion. Then at the end, I felt that the movie did manage to throw together a nice message about family. And the end credit sequences showing everybody who worked on the film as a child with their families, that was cute. And even though I think Katie will probably never truly like her family, which is sad, I just don't think she likes them, which is really unfortunate. At least at the end, everyone started to try a little bit. I appreciated that. And of the entire family, I liked Maya Rudolph's mom, Linda, the best, because she really did try throughout. And she came across as a nice and I felt fun person. I felt bad she had low self-esteem. I was like, Linda, you're great. I blame your family for not telling you how great you are. And there's also a funny gag with her character in the third act that was not only a hoot, but I thought made her character actually really cool. So I liked Linda a lot. So that's my review of The Mitchells versus the Machines. It's on Netflix this Friday. You're probably going to watch it, and you're at least going to think it's okay, which is Netflix's formula for success. All right, share your own thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.